Claire Voss looked down at Daniel Mercer's resume, gave a short laugh, and slid it across the polished conference table. 7 employers in 8 years, she said. Were you building a career, Mr. Mercer, or collecting company badges? Daniel glanced at the clock behind her. 2:17. His son's robotics demonstration started at 4:30, and he had promised he would be there before the first machine moved. He closed the folder in front of him. If that's what you see when you read it, he said, standing, then we're probably wasting each other's time. Claire's smile disappeared. Before she could answer, the phone beside her hand began vibrating. Then her second phone rang. Then the conference room screen lit up with an incoming call labeled Newark Plant. Urgent. Daniel had already reached the door when Claire answered. What happened? He heard only her side. When? Pause. Both lines. Another pause, longer this time. What do you mean the compressor won't trip? Daniel's hand stopped on the door handle. Claire's eyes shifted toward him. She covered the phone. You know something about industrial compressors? Daniel almost laughed, although nothing about the moment was funny. She had spent the last 15 minutes treating 8 years of industrial reliability work as proof that he couldn't hold a job. Now a machine somewhere 40 miles away had apparently given his resume a second interview. Which compressor? The West unit at Newark. Oil temperature or vibration? She uncovered the phone. Which alarm came first? The answer made her face tighten. Daniel picked up his coat. Shut the West compressor down manually, he said. And tell whoever's standing near it not to restart it just because the temperature drops. Claire stared at him. Why? Because if vibration came first and temperature followed, the alarm probably isn't your problem. Something mechanical is starving the bearings. Can you stay? Daniel looked at the clock again. No. You're walking out while one of our production lines is down? I was already walking out. Mr. Mercer. My son is expecting me. Then Daniel opened the door and left. He made it to the elevator before he realized his hands were shaking. Not from Claire's insult. Not exactly. He had heard versions of that judgment before, usually from recruiters who liked careers to move in straight lines because straight lines fit neatly into databases. Daniel's career didn't. It bent around school pickups, custody hearings, emergency dentist appointments, summer schedules, a failed marriage, one frightening year when his son stopped sleeping properly, and a collection of contracts Daniel had accepted because they let him be home when no one needed him. Those facts were not printed beneath his job titles. Neither was the reason he had turned down 2 promotions. Neither was the fact that one of the companies listed as a 6-month contract had saved nearly $3 million the year Daniel rebuilt its maintenance schedule. Neither was the fact that Voss Meridian Systems had later purchased that company. Claire Voss hadn't asked. Daniel hadn't volunteered. That was one of his problems. He had spent years believing that if he explained too much, people would hear an excuse. So he explained nothing and let them assume whatever they wanted. The elevator opened into the glass and marble lobby of Voss Meridian's Columbus headquarters. On the wall behind reception, silver letters spelled out the company motto. Own the outcome. Daniel paused long enough to read it once. Then he walked outside. His phone started ringing before he reached his truck. He ignored the unfamiliar number. It rang again. He ignored it again. A text appeared. Claire Voss, you were right. They shut down the compressor. Call me. Daniel put the phone face down on the passenger seat and started the engine. For once, he wasn't going to let a broken machine decide where he spent his afternoon. At 45, Daniel knew exactly how seductive that trap could be. Machines were easier than people. Machines failed for reasons. A bearing didn't tell you it was fine and then move 3 states away. A pump didn't insist that you should have known what it needed without being told. A sensor could lie, but if you understood the system, eventually you found out why. People were harder. His 12-year-old son was becoming harder too, although Daniel suspected that was mostly because 12-year-olds were supposed to be. Noah had once narrated every thought he had from the time he woke up until the time he fell asleep. Now some days Daniel got 3 words during breakfast and a full speech only after bedtime, usually when Daniel needed to wake up at 5:30. But Noah still had one habit Daniel watched carefully. Whenever Daniel promised to attend something, Noah asked what time he would arrive. Not whether. What time. Daniel knew where that came from. 4 years earlier, when Daniel and Hannah were separating, Noah had spent too many evenings hearing words like maybe, probably, soon, we'll see, and I'll call you tomorrow. Daniel had eventually created a rule. If it changes the plan, you tell me. Noah had been 8. He had nodded like they were signing a treaty. The rule had stuck. Daniel was not always good at following it himself. That bothered him more than he admitted. At 3:58, his truck turned into the parking lot of Franklin Ridge Middle School. He was early. Noah spotted him through the glass doors before Daniel even entered the gym. The boy's entire face changed. It lasted maybe half a second. Just a quick lift at the corners of his mouth before he remembered he was 12 and school gyms were apparently no place for visible affection. Daniel saw it anyway. That half second was worth more than the interview. Noah was standing beside a waist-high robot made from aluminum framing, black wheels, and enough exposed wires to make Daniel want to reorganize them on principle. His teammate Malik waved. "You came." Daniel frowned dramatically. "I was informed there would be highly advanced machinery." Noah rolled his eyes. "It picks up tennis balls. NASA started somewhere." "You say that every time." "Because history keeps proving me right." Noah pointed to a small orange gear mounted near the robot's intake. "That's the one we changed." Daniel leaned closer. 2 nights earlier, Noah had complained that the original gear slipped whenever the robot turned sharply. Daniel had resisted the urge to solve the problem for him. Instead, he had handed Noah his old black field notebook. "What failed first?" Daniel had asked. Noah had written the question down. Then he and Malik had figured it out themselves. The field notebook was still on the work table now, grease-stained from years of factories and marked with Noah's pencil sketches across the last 3 pages. Daniel picked it up. "You stole my notebook." "You gave it to me. I temporarily transferred custody. It has my handwriting in it now." "That is not how ownership works." Noah grinned. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen. Claire Voss. Noah noticed. "Job people?" Daniel slipped the phone back into his pocket. "Yeah." "How'd it go?" There were several answers Daniel could have given. "Fine. Complicated. We'll talk later." Instead he said, "I don't think I'm getting that one." Noah looked disappointed, but only for a second. "Was the interview bad?" "The interview was educational." "That means bad." "That means I learned something." "What?" Daniel looked at his son, then at the robot. "That some people decide what they think about you before they ask enough questions." Noah considered that. "Did you do that thing where you get quiet?" Daniel blinked. "What thing?" "You get really quiet when somebody annoys you." "I am a calm person." "You reorganized the silverware drawer after Mom called last week." "That drawer was chaos." Noah smiled. A teacher announced that the demonstration was starting. Daniel moved toward the folding chairs. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail transcription. "We have a partial seizure on West Compressor. No injuries. Main line 4 down. Please call." Daniel read it twice. Then he put the phone away and watched his son's robot miss its first 3 tennis balls. Noah looked over. Daniel pointed at the front wheel. Noah shook his head. Daniel held both hands up. "Not helping." Noah crouched, checked the intake, and discovered the orange gear had shifted. He fixed it himself. On the second run, the robot collected 11 balls out of 12. Noah looked toward Daniel before he looked toward the judges. That hurt a little. In a good way. Because it reminded Daniel that children often measured success by checking whether the person who mattered had seen it. At 5:12, after the gym had mostly emptied, Daniel finally listened to Claire's voicemail. Her voice sounded completely different from the woman in the conference room. "Mr. Mercer, this is Claire Voss. You were correct about the sequence. The West Compressor experienced bearing damage. Nobody was hurt, but the shutdown took our primary assembly line with it. Our plant team says you may have worked on that system several years ago. I owe you an apology for the interview. I also need to ask you something. Please call me." Daniel stared at the screen. Noah was packing cables into a plastic bin. "Still job people?" "Yeah." "Are they changing their minds?" Daniel almost said maybe. Instead he remembered the rule. They had a problem at one of their factories. I recognized what it might be. "So now they want you?" "I don't know what they want." Noah snapped the lid onto the bin. "Are you going there?" Daniel looked at him. "What would you think if I did?" Noah shrugged. "That's not an answer. You always say that. Because it keeps being true." Noah picked at the edge of a sticker on the bin. "You already came here." Daniel understood what he meant. The promise had been kept. Anything after that felt negotiable. But Daniel also understood something Noah hadn't said. He was waiting to see whether the rest of the evening would disappear too. Daniel checked the time. "Pizza at home first." Noah nodded. "And after pizza?" "I might make one phone call." "Okay. If anything changes after that, I'll tell you." This time Noah looked directly at him. "Okay." Daniel called Claire from his kitchen at 6:20. He put the phone on speaker while Noah sat at the table trying to eat pizza and finish math homework simultaneously. An approach Daniel considered offensive to both mathematics and pizza. Claire answered on the first ring. Mr. Mercer. Daniel is fine. Daniel. Thank you for calling. What happened? The West compressor seized enough to shut down line 4. We lost part of line 3 because they share cooling capacity. Our maintenance supervisor says the damage could be worse than they first thought. Who's your maintenance supervisor? Jenna Ruiz. Daniel stopped chewing. No kidding. You know her? I know Jenna. Apparently she knows you too. That explained why Claire had called so many times. Jenna Ruiz had been an electrical technician at Hartwell Controls when Daniel worked there as an outside reliability consultant. She was smart, stubborn, and one of the few people in the building who had cared more about why machines failed than who got blamed when they did. Daniel had once told Hartwell management they were wasting Jenna in a technician role. They had eventually promoted her. Claire continued. She said you were the person who redesigned the maintenance sequence on that compressor system. I helped. She used a stronger word. Jenna exaggerates when she likes somebody. From the table, Noah whispered, Do you like her? Daniel pointed at the homework. Claire apparently heard. Your son? Yes. I can call tomorrow. Daniel appreciated that she offered. What does Jenna need? Apparently she's trying to determine whether the compressor caused the shutdown or whether something else caused the compressor failure. That sounds like Jenna. Claire hesitated. She asked if you could come to Newark tonight. Daniel looked at Noah. Noah was now pretending not to listen. How late? We don't know. No. Claire went silent. Daniel continued. I can speak to Jenna for 20 minutes. If somebody's in danger, call emergency services. If the equipment is isolated, the plant can survive until morning. We have a customer order scheduled to ship at 6 a.m. That's a business emergency. It's a $5 million account. Still a business emergency. Noah looked up. Claire took a breath. I deserve some of that. This isn't about the interview. It's at least a little about the interview. It's about my kid having school tomorrow. Daniel heard papers moving on her end. 8 a.m.? I can be in Newark at 8:30. I'll pay your consulting rate. You don't know my rate. Send it. I have one condition. Claire sounded almost amused. You haven't even heard the amount. Jenna runs the technical review. Your managers don't turn me into the outside expert who comes in and makes the people already there look incompetent. That wasn't my plan. Good. Then it's easy to agree. Pause. Agreed. Daniel ended the call. Noah waited 3 seconds. $5 million account? Homework. That sounded important. Homework. Are you going tomorrow? After I take you to school. You could just leave early. Daniel looked at him. I could. Noah lowered his eyes to the worksheet. Daniel caught the smallest smile. At 8:28 the next morning, Daniel drove through the security gate at Voss Meridian's Newark facility. The plant was larger than he remembered from its Hartwell days. A new shipping building had been added to the east side. The old brick administration wing had been covered in gray metal panels. A digital sign near the employee entrance displayed the same message he had seen at headquarters. On the outcome. Daniel parked beside a row of contractor vans. That detail bothered him before he knew why. Jenna met him inside. She was 50 now, maybe 51, with silver beginning to show in her dark hair and safety glasses perched on top of her head. She looked at Daniel, then at the collared shirt he had worn to the interview the day before. You finally figured out buttons. Daniel hugged her. You finally got promoted. 3 times. I take full credit. You disappeared for 4 years. I sent Christmas cards. You sent one. It was a strong card. Jenna pulled back. Then her expression changed. We've got a mess. Daniel followed her through the plant. Line 4 was silent. For people who had never worked in manufacturing, silence probably sounded peaceful. Daniel knew better. Factories had their own kind of heartbeat. Motors, fans, conveyors, pneumatic valves, carts rolling across concrete. When a major line stopped, the absence of those sounds felt unnatural. A dozen workers stood near the disabled equipment. Some were inspecting components. Others waited for instructions. Nobody looked relaxed. Jenna pointed toward a large compressor housing behind a safety barrier. West unit. Bearing damage. We caught it before it destroyed the shaft. Alarm history? Vibration alarm at 148. Temperature alarm at 151. Trip. Jenna's jaw tightened. Didn't happen. Bad relay? No. Daniel looked at her. Someone bypassed it? Looks that way. Who? That's the fun part. Daniel hated when maintenance people used the word fun. It almost always meant something expensive. Jenna handed him a tablet. The system showed an authorization change 3 weeks earlier. Automatic trip override. Duration, 90 days. Approval category, operations continuity. Daniel read it again. Who created that category? Jenna gave him a look. You're going to enjoy meeting Martin Keene. Daniel had heard the name. Chief Operating Officer. Claire's second in command. The man credited in several industry articles with integrating Voss Meridian's acquisitions and improving output. Claire approached from behind them wearing safety glasses and a dark blue blazer over work clothes. You found something? Daniel handed her the tablet. You didn't have an alarm failure. Claire read the screen. I don't understand. The alarm worked. So did the sensor. Then why didn't the compressor shut down? Because somebody told the system not to. Claire looked at Jenna. Who authorized this? Jenna answered carefully. The change was entered under an executive operations code. Whose? Before Jenna could respond, another voice came from behind them. Mine. Martin Keene was in his early 50s, tall, polished, and calm in the way some executives became calm when they expected everyone else to become nervous. He walked over and looked at Daniel. You must be Mercer. Daniel noticed the wording. Not Mr. Mercer. Not Daniel. Mercer. Like a name printed on an old work order. Martin continued. We've already reviewed the override. It was approved during an unstable sensor period. We had repeated nuisance trips. Jenna said, the sensor wasn't unstable. Martin looked at her. We had production interruptions. That's not the same thing. It is when customers are waiting. Daniel handed the tablet back to Jenna. What changed 3 weeks ago? Martin answered. We increased output. How much? Roughly 18%. Same cooling capacity? Yes. Same compressor pair? Yes. Same oil system? Martin's expression hardened. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm asking questions. You've been here 15 minutes. That's usually when questions work best. Jenna coughed into her hand, badly hiding a smile. Claire noticed. So did Martin. Daniel walked closer to the compressor. Who rebuilt the oil return assembly? Jenna pointed toward a contractor tag. Delta Mechanical. 6 months ago. Good company. Martin folded his arms. So that's our likely root cause. Daniel turned. No. You just asked who rebuilt it. Because I wanted to know who rebuilt it. And they're good. Martin stared at him. Daniel continued. You increased production 18%. You overrode the trip because the equipment kept interrupting production. Then the exact condition the trip was designed to protect against happened. You don't know that yet. You're right. Daniel pointed at the silent line. But neither do you. Claire looked between them. What do you need? Trend history. Maintenance requests. Oil analysis if you have it. Cooling load for the last 90 days. And whoever actually works around that compressor every day. Jenna lifted a hand. I can get all of it. Martin said, we have a customer waiting for an answer. Daniel looked at Claire. This is the part where your company decides whether it wants an answer or wants a sentence that sounds like one. Claire didn't respond immediately. The line remained silent behind them. Finally she said, Jenna gets whatever she needs. Martin stepped closer to Claire. We should discuss that. We will. Privately. Claire looked at him. Later. Daniel saw something change in Martin's face. Small. But clear. For the first time that morning, he wasn't completely sure Claire would follow his lead. By noon Daniel understood why. The maintenance department had submitted 7 requests in 2 months related to compressor instability. 2 had been completed. 5 had been marked deferred, production priority. Jenna had objected twice in writing. Both objections had been closed by central operations. Daniel sat in the maintenance office with printed reports spread across the table. Claire stood across from him. Why wasn't I told? Jenna answered before Daniel could. You were. Claire looked at her. I never saw this. You saw the dashboard. That dashboard says maintenance completion was 93%. Because deferred work stops counting as open work. Claire's eyes narrowed. Who designed that? Jenna didn't answer. She didn't need to. Claire sat down. Daniel watched her. This was the first moment since meeting her that he felt something close to sympathy. Not because she was innocent. She wasn't. She had built the company. Her name was on the building. Her approval was on the performance targets. But there was a difference between knowingly creating a bad system and discovering that a system you rewarded had learned how to hide its own damage. Claire picked up one of the reports. Why would anyone exclude deferred work? Daniel said, because then the number looks better. That's absurd. It's common. In my company? You think your company is a different species? Claire looked at him sharply. Daniel let the silence sit. Then he said, you told me yesterday that my resume looked unstable. Her face changed. Jenna suddenly became very interested in her laptop. Daniel continued. You saw 7 employers. You didn't ask how many were contracts. You didn't ask why I left. You had a number and the number told you a story you already believed. Claire looked down at the maintenance report. Daniel tapped it. Same thing. She didn't defend herself. That surprised him. Instead she asked, why did you leave Hartwell? Contract ended. That's not what Jenna said. Daniel glanced at Jenna. You talk too much. She said they offered you a permanent role. They did. And you refused. Yes. Why? Daniel almost gave his usual answer. Personal reasons. Instead he heard Noah's voice. If it changes the plan, you tell me. My son was 8, Daniel said. His mother and I were separating. The job required 40% travel. Claire waited. That's it. That was enough. And after Hartwell? Short contracts. Local projects. Some remote analysis. Anything that let me control my schedule. That explains the resume. It explains part of it. Claire leaned back. You could have told me yesterday. You could have asked without making a joke first. Jenna stood. I'm going to find that oil report. Neither stopped her. Claire waited until the door closed. I was rude. Yes. I'm apologizing. I noticed. I'm not used to people making me work this hard for an apology. Daniel almost smiled. That sounds like a management problem. For the first time, Claire laughed without cruelty. It lasted 1 second. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen and exhaled. Customer. Daniel began gathering reports. Claire answered. He tried not to listen. That lasted about 15 seconds. What do you mean they may suspend the order? Daniel stopped. Claire stood. No, we have not confirmed the cause. Pause. No. Do not send them the preliminary report. Another pause. Who sent it? Her face went still. Daniel knew the answer before she ended the call. Martin? He asked. Claire looked at him. He sent them a draft. What does it say? She turned her laptop around. Daniel read the first paragraph. The report blamed legacy installation deficiencies and contractor maintenance inconsistency. He read it again. Then once more. Legacy installation. Contractor maintenance. Not the override. Not the deferred work. Not the increased production load. Daniel felt something colder than anger. He knew this language. Companies used words like that because words like that had no faces. Contractor maintenance inconsistency could mean Jenna's team. It could mean Delta Mechanical. It could mean Daniel himself. It could mean anyone without an office high enough in the building to argue. Claire said, it's a draft. He sent it to a customer. I know. That makes it less draft-like. I said I know. Daniel pushed the laptop back. I'm done for today. Claire stood. Daniel. You told me Jenna would lead the technical review. She is. Then your COO shouldn't be writing the ending before she finishes the first page. I'll handle Martin. Good. You're leaving? It's 4:10. Claire checked the time. Daniel saw recognition cross her face. His son. I'll pay the full day. I worked the full day. He picked up his field notebook from the table. Claire looked at it. That thing again. Daniel glanced down. You mocked my resume. Leave the notebook alone. I didn't mock the notebook. You looked at it like it needed vaccinations. That earned another short laugh. Then Claire became serious. Will you come back tomorrow? Daniel considered the question. I'll come back if Jenna still wants help. I want you here. That's not the same thing. Claire seemed about to argue. Then she nodded. Tomorrow. Daniel drove straight to Noah's school. He arrived 9 minutes before basketball practice ended. Noah climbed into the truck carrying his backpack and immediately sniffed the air. You smell weird. Industrial excellence. You smell like hot metal. That too. Noah buckled his seatbelt. Did you fix the factory? No. You were there all day. Yes. So what did you do? Figured out what not to fix. Noah looked confused. Daniel smiled. Sometimes the broken part isn't the real problem. They stopped for tacos. Halfway through dinner, Daniel's phone buzzed 3 times. He didn't touch it. No one noticed. Important. Probably. You can check. I know. Dad. What? You're staring at the phone without staring at it. Daniel looked at him. That doesn't make sense. You do it. Daniel finally checked. 1 message from Jenna. 1 from Claire. 1 from Hannah. The message from his ex-wife was the shortest. Call me. Noah told me about the interview. Daniel looked across the table. Noah was suddenly very interested in his taco. You told Mom? She asked what happened today. You could have said robotics. I did. And I said you might have a job thing. Daniel put the phone down. Hannah lived outside Denver now. She and Daniel had divorced 3 years earlier after months of arguments about money, work, parenting, and a marriage both had spent too long pretending could be repaired by better scheduling. There had been no affair. No dramatic betrayal. That almost made the divorce harder to explain. Hannah had received an opportunity in Colorado after the separation. She took it. Noah remained with Daniel during the school year and spent most of the summer plus alternating holidays with her. The arrangement worked. Mostly. But 6 weeks earlier Hannah had suggested that Noah might benefit from living in Colorado for 8th grade. She had good schools nearby. A predictable schedule. Her new husband Eric was decent to Noah. And Daniel's consulting income had become inconsistent. Hannah wasn't trying to punish him. That didn't stop Daniel from hearing the suggestion as a threat. He had responded the way he responded to most threats. By revealing less. He hadn't told Noah that his parents were discussing next year. He hadn't told Hannah how thin his current work pipeline had become. He had simply started applying for stable jobs. Including Voss Meridian. Control the problem. Fix it quietly. Nobody had to worry. That had been Daniel's method for years. He called Hannah after Noah went to bed. You told him you lost the interview? She asked. I didn't lose it. What does that mean? It means I walked out. Hannah went silent. Daniel. The CEO mocked my work history. So you left? Yes. You need a stable position. I'm aware. This is exactly what I've been trying to talk to you about. I don't need a lecture. I'm not giving you a lecture. I'm telling you that no one notices this. He's fine. You always say that. Daniel closed his eyes. He is fine. Fine is not the same as secure. He has a house. He has school. He has me. And he hears you taking calls at 10 at night because somebody's production line broke. That pays for the house. I know that. Then what are we arguing about? Hannah's voice softened. We're arguing because you think providing stability means hiding every unstable thing until you've solved it. Daniel stared at the dark kitchen. I'm handling it. That sentence is why we got divorced. He almost hung up. Instead he stayed silent. Hannah continued. I'm not trying to take him from you. You brought up Colorado. I brought up a conversation. With a mediator. Because conversations with you become decisions you announce after you make them. Daniel's jaw tightened. I have been his primary parent for 4 years. I know. I built my entire career around that. I know. Then stop acting like I'm some guy who forgot to pick his kid up. I'm not. Sounds like it. Hannah exhaled. Did you tell Noah we're discussing next year? Daniel looked toward the hallway. No. That's what I mean. We haven't decided anything. He doesn't need every adult problem dumped on him. I agree. But there's a difference between protecting a child from adult details and letting him be the last person to know his own life might change. Daniel didn't answer. Hannah said, think about it. Then she ended the call. Daniel remained at the kitchen table for nearly 20 minutes. His field notebook sat beside him. He opened it. The first pages contained compressor readings from 6 years earlier. The middle held sketches, maintenance intervals, part numbers, phone numbers of technicians who had probably changed jobs twice since then. The final pages contained Noah's robot drawings. On one page in pencil Noah had written, "What failed first?" Daniel ran his thumb over the words. Then his phone rang again. "Claire." He answered. "I'm guessing you don't sleep." "Not tonight." "What happened?" "Martin believes the customer report was appropriate." "I'm shocked." "I told him it was withdrawn." "Good." "He says we'll lose the account if we don't provide a cause by Friday." "What day is it?" "Wednesday." "Then you have 2 days to find the cause. I want you on the review. Jenna's already running it." I want you formally on it. Why? Because you noticed in 15 minutes what my senior operations team didn't notice in 2 months. They noticed. Claire went quiet. Daniel continued. They just called it something different. That's what I'm afraid of. The sentence sounded less like something a CEO would say and more like something a person would say. Daniel listened. Claire continued. 30-day consulting agreement. Your rate. 8 to 4:30 unless there is a genuine safety emergency. You report jointly to me and Jenna. Daniel almost laughed. You remembered the time. I can learn. What does Martin think? He hates it. That helps. Is that a yes? Daniel looked again at Noah's handwriting. 30 days would cover several months of his mortgage. It would also place him directly inside a company that had already shown him exactly how it handled inconvenient truths. Yes, Daniel said. 30 days. The next morning he signed the agreement. By the third day the compressor no longer interested him nearly as much as the spreadsheets surrounding it. The mechanical failure was real. The bearings had worn faster than expected. But the reason was not a bad contractor repair. The compressor had been asked to operate under heavier load for longer periods while preventative maintenance windows were repeatedly delayed. The automatic trip had done exactly what it was supposed to do several times. Each trip reduced production. Each reduced production. Each reduced production hurt a metric called schedule reliability. Schedule reliability influenced management bonuses. Daniel stared at the compensation chart on Jenna's screen. There it is. Jenna nodded. People don't ignore alarms because they hate machines. They ignore alarms because somebody pays them to hate downtime. Exactly. Jenna leaned back. You know the worst part? What? We complained. I saw. No. I mean all of us complained. Techs. Supervisors. Even 2 plant managers. What happened? Central operations told us we were too conservative. Martin? His office. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Jenna opened another folder. Look at this. It was an old presentation. Voss Meridian Integration Strategy. The document was 6 years old. One slide described a reliability model for newly acquired plants. Centralize major purchasing. Localize maintenance decisions. Track repeat failures instead of raw downtime. Protect scheduled preventative work from production pressure. Daniel stared. The wording looked familiar. Very familiar. Where did this come from? Jenna smiled without humor. You. Daniel looked at her. No. Yes. I never worked for Voss Meridian. You worked for Hartwell. You wrote the turnaround plan before Voss bought us. I wrote a maintenance proposal. 14 pages. Something like that. Martin used it during the acquisition. Daniel scrolled to the final slide. Presented by Martin Keene, Vice President of Operations. Daniel laughed. Not because it was funny. Because sometimes reality became so perfectly irritating that the only alternative was throwing something. He put his name on it? Pretty much. Did you know? No. Does Claire? Ask her. Daniel did. Claire read the document in silence that afternoon. They were sitting in a small conference room overlooking the plant floor. Finally she said, I remember this presentation. Congratulations. I promoted Martin after this integration. Less congratulations. Claire looked at him. Did you give Hartwell permission to use your work? My contract said they owned whatever I created for the project. So legally, I don't care. She stopped. You don't? Not much. Then why are you angry? Because he ignored the part that mattered. Claire looked back at the slides. Daniel pointed. Local maintenance decisions. Protect preventative work. Track repeat failures. Those weren't decoration. That was the system. He used the model. He used the parts that made good slides. Claire scrolled further. You think the centralization caused this? I think your company took a system designed to give people close to the equipment more authority and turned it into a system where somebody 30 miles away can delay work without ever hearing the machine. Claire leaned back. You really don't like headquarters. I like headquarters when headquarters remembers it has a floor underneath it. She almost smiled. Then she studied the screen again. I hired Martin because I thought he understood operational discipline. He does. That sounds contradictory. It isn't. Discipline without feedback becomes stubbornness with a spreadsheet. Claire looked toward the plant floor. Workers were testing line 4 at reduced capacity. You think I created this? Daniel considered lying. He decided not to. Part of it. Her jaw tightened. I didn't tell anyone to bypass safety trips. No. I didn't tell anyone to hide deferred maintenance. No. I didn't tell Martin to blame contractors. No. Claire looked at him. Then explain which part is mine. You rewarded output. You rewarded clean dashboards. You promoted the guy who gave you both. And apparently nobody believed bringing you bad news was good for their career. Claire's expression became cold. You've known me 4 days. I'm reading your system, not your personality. You make that distinction sound very convenient. It is. For several seconds neither spoke. Then Claire closed the laptop. You enjoy this. What? Talking to me like I'm a defective machine. Daniel stood. Machines are less defensive. He walked out before she could answer. That evening, Noah was sitting at the kitchen counter when Daniel arrived. A bowl of pasta sat in the microwave. Untouched. Daniel checked the time. 7:18. His stomach dropped. Noah looked up from his tablet. You said 4:30. Daniel set his bag down. I texted. My phone was dead. I called the house. I was at Malik's. Daniel stopped. The line test had run long. Then Claire had called him back into the conference room. Then Jenna had found another maintenance record. One thing became another. He had told himself he would leave in 10 minutes. Then another 10. Then another. I'm sorry. Noah shrugged. That bothered Daniel more than anger would have. I said I'm sorry. I heard you. You're mad. No. You are. Noah looked at him. You always say that's not an answer. Daniel almost smiled. You didn't? Fair. Noah pushed his tablet away. Mom called. Daniel felt his chest tighten. What did she say? Nothing. Noah. She asked about school. Anything else? Colorado. There it was. Daniel pulled out the chair beside him. What about Colorado? Noah looked genuinely confused. You tell me. Daniel felt the room shrink. Hannah shouldn't have. Mom didn't say anything. I heard Eric in the background asking if they needed to clear the other bedroom before September. Daniel closed his eyes. There were moments when a father could almost hear the exact second his own strategy failed. This was one of them. Noah continued. Am I moving? No decision has been made. That's not what I asked. Daniel looked at his son. Noah was frightened. Not crying. Not dramatic. Just watching his father closely because apparently he no longer trusted the first answer. Daniel hated that. We've been talking about where you'll go to school next year. For how long? About 6 weeks. Noah stared at him. 6 weeks. I didn't want you worrying about something that might not happen. So you just didn't tell me? We were trying to figure it out. You were trying to figure out where I live. You live here. Maybe. Noah. You said if it changes the plan you tell me? Daniel had no answer. The same sentence Daniel had used for 4 years had just come back across the kitchen table. He deserved it. Noah stood. I'm going upstairs. Can we talk? You had 6 weeks. The words weren't shouted. That made them worse. Noah walked away. Daniel sat alone at the counter. The microwave beeped behind him. He didn't move. For years he had believed silence protected his son. He never complained about money. He never explained why he refused travel assignments. He never told Noah when a contract ended until the next one had already started. He never said he was scared about custody. He thought his job was to absorb uncertainty before it reached the child. But children noticed uncertainty. They simply filled in the missing pieces themselves. And sometimes the story they invented was worse than the truth. Daniel called Hannah. She answered cautiously. What happened? He knows. Silence. How? He overheard Eric. Oh God. He thinks we've been planning his life behind his back. We kind of have. Daniel rubbed his face. I thought I was protecting him. I know. That doesn't make it better. No. Daniel expected relief from hearing Hannah agree with him. Instead he felt embarrassed. I need to tell him everything. Not everything. You know what I mean. Yes. And I need you there. Hannah paused. Video call? Tomorrow. Okay. Daniel stood outside Noah's bedroom 10 minutes later. He knocked. No answer. He opened the door. Noah was lying on the bed staring at the wall. Daniel sat on the floor instead of the bed. It was something he had learned when Noah was little. Sitting on the floor made difficult conversations feel less like interrogations. I messed up. Noah said nothing. I thought if I solved the problem before you knew about it, you wouldn't have to worry. Still nothing. That made sense in my head. Noah finally turned. Are we moving? I don't know. That's a terrible answer. It's the true one. Noah stared at him. Daniel continued. Your mom thinks Colorado might give you more predictable time with both of us. I think staying here makes more sense because your school, friends, and most of your year are here. And the job. Daniel exhaled. My work has been less steady recently. Are we broke? No. Are you saying that because I'm a kid? No. We are not broke. Then why does mom care about your job? Because adults sometimes use one problem as evidence for a bigger argument. Noah frowned. That sounds annoying. It is extremely annoying. That finally earned the smallest smile. Daniel continued. I applied to Voss Meridian because I wanted something stable. Same city. Predictable schedule. Good work. Then you walked out. I did. Because the lady was mean? Because the lady decided what my work meant before asking me. Noah thought about that. And now you work there anyway. Temporarily. So she changed her mind. Somewhat. Did you? Daniel looked at him. What do you mean? You decided what she was like too. Daniel opened his mouth. Then closed it. Noah shrugged. You said people decide stuff before asking questions. Daniel stared at his 12-year-old. That was extremely disrespectful. Noah smiled. Am I wrong? Unfortunately, no. They sat quietly. Then Daniel said, Your mom and I are going to talk with you tomorrow. You get to say what you want. Adults still have to make the decision, but you're not going to be the last person told. Noah nodded. Daniel stood. At the door, Noah said, Dad? Yeah. If you get that job, don't take it just because of me. Daniel turned. Why? Because then every time you hate it, you'll act like you don't. Daniel felt something settle heavily inside him. Children didn't need to speak like therapists to see patterns. Sometimes they just watched what adults did every day. The next week changed the entire investigation. Daniel and Jenna found that the compressor failure was not an isolated maintenance problem. It was the most expensive example of a larger operating pattern. Production managers had learned that requesting downtime made their numbers worse. Maintenance managers had learned that deferred work disappeared from completion reports. Contractors had learned that raising concerns too aggressively made their contracts harder to renew. None of those rules existed in the employee handbook. They didn't need to. People learned the real rules by watching who got rewarded. Daniel had seen systems like that before. Most were not created by one evil decision. They were created by 20 reasonable decisions that all leaned in the same wrong direction. Claire spent more time at the Newark plant. She asked technicians questions herself. At first, nobody answered honestly. Daniel noticed. Why is everybody agreeing with you? He asked one afternoon. Claire looked irritated. Maybe because I'm right. That's one theory. What's yours? You own the building. So if you ask, is this process working? You'll get a different answer than if Jenna asks, what breaks every Tuesday? Claire considered that. The next day she stopped asking whether things worked. She asked operators what they had learned to work around. The answers lasted 3 hours. A conveyor sensor had been manually reset almost every shift. A cooling valve stuck in humid weather. An automated scheduling tool occasionally assigned preventative work during peak production, so supervisors simply canceled it. A temporary maintenance crew had been doing permanent work for 11 months because the approved headcount had never been restored after the acquisition. Claire filled 12 pages of notes. Daniel noticed she used a plain legal pad. No executive assistant. No tablet. No filtered summary. Just questions. He respected that. He still didn't trust her. Those were different things. Martin Keene respected none of it. He wanted the line running at full output. He wanted the customer report finalized. And he wanted Daniel out of the building. He made that clear during a Thursday meeting. You were hired to help identify a mechanical cause, Martin said. This has turned into an organizational review. Daniel sat across from him. Mechanical systems don't know your org chart. That's a slogan. No. It's why you're having this meeting. Martin looked at Claire. You're allowing a temporary consultant to challenge operating structures he doesn't understand. Daniel almost interrupted. Claire raised one hand. He understands them well enough to have designed half the model you were promoted for. Martin went completely still. Daniel looked at Claire. So did Jenna. Claire placed the old Hartwell presentation on the table. Martin barely glanced at it. That was company work. I didn't ask whether it was legal to use, Claire said. I asked why you presented it as yours. It was integrated with my recommendations. You removed the decentralization section. The company was scaling. You removed the protected maintenance section. It wasn't practical. You kept the savings estimate. Martin's voice hardened. Because that was measurable. Daniel leaned back. There it was. The entire problem in 4 words. Because that was measurable. Claire heard it too. Martin continued. We are losing money every hour this review continues. Claire said, the line is operating at 60%. It should be at 100. Jenna says 100 isn't safe until the second compressor is inspected. Jenna reports to operations. Jenna spoke calmly. I report unsafe conditions to whoever needs to hear them. Martin turned. This is exactly the culture problem I'm talking about. Daniel said, which culture problem? The belief that every concern justifies stopping production. Daniel nodded. And your alternative is what? Professional judgment. Whose? Martin looked at him. Experienced leadership. Daniel smiled slightly. That's what I thought. Martin stood. I'm done with this conversation. Claire remained seated. I'm not. Martin stopped. Claire's voice changed. Not louder. Colder. Until the review is complete, Jenna has final authority on maintenance shutdowns at Newark. No production metric will be used against her department for safety-related downtime. Martin stared. You are making a mistake. Possibly. You're reacting emotionally. Claire glanced toward Daniel. He expected her to become angry. Instead she said, that may be the first time this week someone has accused me of that. Daniel looked away so Martin wouldn't see him smiling. Martin left. Jenna waited 3 seconds. That went well. Claire rubbed her forehead. Does everyone in maintenance communicate through sarcasm? Daniel said, mostly. It's cheaper than therapy. 3 days later, Claire offered Daniel the job. Not consulting. The actual job. Director of Reliability and Operational Systems. $168,000 a year. Annual performance bonus. Health insurance. Retirement contribution. Limited travel. Authority across 3 plants. The kind of position Daniel had once expected to hold by 38. The kind of position he had stopped expecting after his life stopped moving in a straight line. Claire placed the offer in front of him. This time she did not laugh at his resume. I should tell you something, she said. What? When HR first sent me your application, I almost rejected it without an interview. Daniel looked at her. That confession really improves the moment. I'm not finished. Please continue improving it. Jenna's name was in an old acquisition file connected to one of your projects. That's why I agreed to meet you. So I was a curiosity interview. Basically. Excellent. I said I was apologizing, not making myself look good. Daniel looked at the offer again. The salary would solve a lot. Not everything, but a lot. Hannah's concerns about schedule. His uneven consulting pipeline. The constant calculations at the kitchen table. How many months of savings? Which contract might renew? Whether he could keep saying no to travel. Claire said, you'd have authority to rebuild the system correctly. That's appealing. I know. What's the catch? Her expression changed. That was enough. Daniel leaned back. There's always a catch when somebody pauses before answering. We need to resolve the customer report. No. You haven't heard what I'm asking. I know what Martin wants in it. This isn't Martin's language. Claire slid a second document across the table. Daniel read. The wording was more careful. No direct accusation against contractors. No false statement about installation defects. Instead it described the failure as resulting from legacy maintenance documentation gaps, vendor-dependent service practices, and an improperly configured protective control threshold. Daniel looked at Claire. The threshold wasn't improperly configured. It was overridden. That's a configuration. That's a decision. The document doesn't say otherwise. It makes it sound accidental. Claire folded her hands. The customer wants assurance that the cause has been identified. Then identify it. We have. No. You've identified enough pieces to write something lawyers won't hate. That matters. I know it matters. We employ almost 1,400 people. Daniel said nothing. Claire continued. If this customer suspends the contract, Newark loses a significant portion of next quarter's production. I'm not talking about my bonus. I'm talking about shifts, overtime, contractor hours, possibly jobs. You think I don't understand that? I think you're viewing this as a clean choice between truth and dishonesty. Daniel looked at the document. And you think it's more complicated? It is more complicated. She was right. That annoyed him. Claire continued. The report acknowledges the override. Page 6. It's there. After 4 pages describing vendor practices. We have outside counsel reviewing it. That does not make me feel better. I'm offering you the authority to fix everything you're criticizing. Daniel looked up. Claire's voice softened. But I need leadership that understands the difference between correcting a system and blowing it up. There it was. The poisoned part of the offer. Not a demand to tell an obvious lie. That would have been easy to reject. Instead, he was being offered something he genuinely wanted in exchange for agreeing to language that was technically defensible and emotionally dishonest. If Daniel accepted, he could change the system from inside. If he refused, Martin would probably find another consultant willing to sign. Was protecting 1,400 jobs worth allowing an incomplete story to become the official one? Was refusing the offer integrity? Or pride? Was accepting it compromise? Or adulthood? For once, Daniel didn't know. Claire gave him 48 hours. That night, Daniel left the documents face down on the kitchen counter. Noah found them anyway. Not intentionally. Daniel had gone outside to bring in a package. When he returned, Noah was staring at the first page. His eyes were wide. 168,000? Daniel took the document gently. Private. Sorry. You can't read things on the counter just because they're there. It said your name. That's not a legal defense. Noah looked excited. You got the job? I got an offer. That's good. Maybe. Noah's expression changed. Do you not want it? Daniel sat down. This was usually the moment he would say adult stuff. Instead he said, I want parts of it. What parts? The schedule. The money. The work. Being able to fix some things. What parts don't you want? Daniel thought carefully. They want me to agree with a report that isn't exactly false, but doesn't tell the whole story. Noah frowned. That sounds false. It's more complicated than that. That's what adults say when the answer is yes. Daniel stared. Your mother has been talking to you too much. Noah smiled. Then he became serious. If you say no, do we have to move? Daniel felt the question hit somewhere deep. No. Are you sure? Yes. What about Colorado? That decision isn't based on one job. Noah looked unconvinced. Daniel continued. Your mom and I talked. You're staying here through the school year. You'll spend a longer part of summer in Colorado, and we'll revisit things later if we need to. Noah's shoulders dropped. Daniel hadn't realized how tense they were. We decided? We all decided. You asked me. We did. Pause. Then Noah nodded toward the offer. So don't take it because you think I need you to. Daniel remembered their earlier conversation. You already said that. I'm saying it again. Why? Noah shrugged. Because if you take a job where people make you say stuff you don't think is true, you're going to come home and reorganize everything. Daniel laughed despite himself. I reorganize responsibly. You alphabetized the spices once. The labels were inconsistent. You put cumin beside cinnamon because both started with C. That happened one time. Noah smiled. Then he said, You always tell me to say the hard thing first. Daniel looked at him. Do I? Whenever I break something. That is completely different. Why? Because you're 12. Noah grinned. Daniel did not. Because behind the joke was an uncomfortable truth. He had created rules for Noah that Daniel himself avoided whenever the stakes became expensive. Tell me if it changes the plan. Say the hard thing first. Don't leave people guessing. Daniel had thought those were parenting rules. Maybe they were just rules. The next morning he called Claire. I'm not signing the report. She went silent. Daniel continued. I'm also not rejecting the job yet. That's an interesting negotiation strategy. I'll give you an alternative. I'm listening. 30-day independent corrective review. Jenna leads plant maintenance. I handle reliability systems. We produce one factual root cause report that goes to you, the customer, and your insurer. Same version. No contractor scapegoating. No burying the override. Claire didn't answer. Daniel continued. If you still want to offer me the position after that, we discuss it. And if the customer walks? Then at least they walk because of what happened, not because 6 months from now they discover we edited what happened. You say we. I noticed. Claire was quiet for several seconds. Then she asked, Do you understand what you're asking me to risk? Yes. I don't think you do. Then tell me. So she did. The Newark customer represented almost 12% of company revenue. A suspension could trigger concerns from two lenders. The lenders were already watching costs from a recent acquisition. A major revenue loss might freeze hiring across Voss Meridian. Claire had spent 12 years growing the company from a regional control supplier into a national manufacturer. She had personally guaranteed part of an expansion loan during the early years. The company no longer needed her money to survive. But her identity was still wrapped around its survival. Daniel understood that more than he expected. Claire had her own version of his mistake. He controlled information because he believed his job was to absorb uncertainty for Noah. Claire controlled outcomes because she believed her job was to absorb uncertainty for the company. Both of them had spent years confusing control with protection. Daniel said, "I understand better now. And I'm still not signing it." Claire exhaled. "I hate that I expected that answer. What are you going to do?" "I don't know." "That's a terrible answer." Claire laughed once. "Your son?" Unfortunately. The decisive evidence appeared the following Monday. Not in an email. Not in hidden security footage. Not through a miraculous confession. It appeared in 23 ordinary maintenance tickets. Daniel noticed that every deferred request carried an approval code. Most people had treated the code as administrative noise. Daniel had worked in too many factories to ignore repeated noise. MK17. He asked Jenna what it meant. Martin Keene. Executive Priority Category 17. What's 17? Customer Continuity. Who can apply it? Central Operations. Who can remove it? Jenna checked. Then looked at him. Central Operations. Daniel lined up the dates. Every major maintenance deferral at Newark during the previous 9 months had received the same code. Then he compared those dates with production schedules. Each deferral happened during weeks when executive incentive forecasts were at risk. Daniel didn't need to prove Martin had ordered anyone to bypass a safety system. He didn't think Martin had. The truth was less dramatic. And more damaging. Martin had created a structure where people below him understood exactly what kind of decision would be rewarded. Daniel showed Claire. She read the timeline without speaking. Then she opened her own compensation file. Daniel watched her expression change. What? Claire rotated the laptop. Martin's incentive plan had been approved by Claire. Schedule reliability. Output growth. On-time customer delivery. No equally weighted measure for deferred maintenance. No repeat failure metric. No protected safety downtime. Claire stared at her own digital signature. Daniel said nothing. She whispered, "I did this. You approved part of it. I approved the targets." "Yes." "He built the reporting system." "Yes." "But I approved the targets." Daniel nodded. Claire closed her eyes. For a moment, Daniel saw none of the authority that had irritated him in the interview. Just a woman realizing the company had obeyed her more faithfully than she had understood. She opened her eyes. "I'm stopping full output." Daniel looked at her. "Until when?" "Until Jenna signs off on every overdue critical maintenance item. That could take days." "I know." "The customer may suspend." "I know." "Martin will fight you." "I know." Daniel nodded. "Okay." Claire looked at him. "That's all? What do you want, applause?" "No." "Good." She almost smiled. Then she picked up her phone. This time when it started ringing she didn't flinch. The meeting took place the next morning inside the Newark plant's training room. It wasn't a boardroom. Daniel was glad. Boardrooms made bad decisions look too clean. The training room had folding tables, safety posters, a coffee machine that sounded as though it had survived multiple acquisitions, and windows overlooking the silent section of Line 4. Claire sat at the front. Martin sat to her right. Jenna and Daniel sat near the maintenance team. On the video screen were representatives from Voss Meridian's largest Newark customer, an insurance engineer, and 2 members of the company's audit committee. Nobody looked comfortable. Claire opened the meeting. "We are here to establish the cause of the Line 4 shutdown and determine whether full production can resume." Martin spoke almost immediately. "We've already established the mechanical cause." Jenna looked at Daniel. Daniel shook his head slightly. "Let him finish." Martin continued. "The bearing assembly experienced accelerated wear associated with legacy maintenance conditions. Corrective work is underway. From an operational standpoint, there is no reason to delay full production." The customer representative asked, "Was the protective trip functioning?" Martin paused. "The system was under an approved temporary configuration." Daniel wrote 4 words in his notebook. Approved temporary configuration. Claire looked at him. He slid the notebook toward her. Beneath the phrase he wrote, "Who approved the risk?" Claire read it, then looked at Martin. "Who approved the override?" Martin's expression tightened. "Operations did." "Who?" "The plant submitted." Jenna interrupted. "No." Everyone looked at her. Jenna opened a maintenance ticket. "The plant submitted a request to investigate repeated trips. Central operations instructed us to maintain output while analysis continued." Martin said, "That is not the same as ordering an override." "I didn't say it was." "Then be precise." Jenna nodded. "Gladly." The override was entered by a systems administrator after the plant received executive continuity authorization under MK-17. The room went very quiet. Martin looked at Claire. "This is being framed dishonestly." Daniel finally spoke. "I agree." Martin turned toward him, surprised. Daniel continued. "Nobody has evidence that you personally told somebody to bypass the trip." Martin leaned back. "Thank you." Daniel opened his notebook. "But that isn't the root cause either." The customer representative said, "Then what is?" Daniel looked toward the windows overlooking line 4. "The bearing failed because lubrication conditions deteriorated under increased load. That should have caused downtime, not a major shutdown. The major shutdown happened because repeated warnings were treated as production obstacles." Martin shook his head. "That's interpretation." "No. That's the maintenance history." Daniel slid copies across the table. 7 instability requests. 5 deferred. Another page. 3 automatic trips. All followed by production continuity reviews. Another. 18% output increase without cooling capacity expansion. Another. Protective override entered for 90 days. Martin said, "Again, none of that proves misconduct." Daniel looked at him. "I didn't say misconduct." "Then what are you accusing me of?" "Nothing." Martin stared. Daniel continued. "That's your mistake. You think this review needs a villain." He pointed at the reports. "It doesn't." Claire watched him closely. Daniel said, "Your alarm didn't fail. Your technicians didn't fail. Your contractor didn't fail. Your company taught people that downtime was more dangerous to their careers than deferred maintenance." Nobody spoke. Daniel continued. "And before anyone decides that's Mr. Keen's problem alone, his performance targets were approved by executive leadership." He looked at Claire. "So did everyone else." Claire did not look away. Martin seemed almost relieved. "Exactly. These were company-approved objectives." Claire nodded. "They were." Martin stopped. Claire continued. "I approved them." The customer representative shifted closer to the screen. Claire said, "I did not approve bypassing protective systems. But I approved incentives that rewarded uninterrupted output without equally measuring deferred risk. That created pressure I failed to examine." Martin's face changed. "Claire, you should speak to counsel before making statements like that." "I have." "You're exposing the company." "No. The company is already exposed." He leaned toward her. "You are about to jeopardize 1,400 employees because a consultant has convinced you that operational discipline is unethical." Daniel remained silent. This was no longer his decision. Claire's phone began ringing on the table. She looked at the caller. Her chief financial officer. Probably the lenders. Maybe the board. Maybe both. For 1 second Daniel remembered the interview. The same vibration. The same sharp interruption. Only this time Claire didn't look toward Daniel for an answer. She silenced the phone. Then she looked at Jenna. "Can line 4 run safely at full production today?" Jenna answered immediately. "No." "At 60%? For limited operation, yes." "How long until full production?" "Best case 72 hours. If inspection finds additional damage, longer." Claire turned toward the customer representative. "We will operate at 60% until maintenance signs off." Martin stood. "You cannot make that decision based on?" Claire turned. "I just did." The customer representative said, "Our order will miss schedule." "Yes. We may have to suspend new volume." "I understand. Are you asking us to accept the delay?" Claire shook her head. "I'm telling you what we can safely deliver. What you decide after that is your decision." Daniel watched Martin. The man's face seemed to empty. 4 years, Martin had apparently built his authority around one assumption. Claire would always choose the number. Output. Revenue. Schedule. Growth. This time she didn't. Martin gathered his papers. If this is how you intend to run the company, you don't need me. Claire looked at him. I think that's probably true. He left without another word. No applause followed. No one gasped. The coffee machine made a horrible grinding sound in the corner. Jenna looked toward it. Next investigation. Daniel almost laughed. The customer suspended additional volume for 6 days. Voss Meridian lost money. Not catastrophic money. Real money. Overtime disappeared for 1 week at Newark. 2 expansion hires were delayed. The lenders requested additional reporting. Claire spent several uncomfortable days explaining why production forecasts had changed. Martin resigned before the internal review finished. The review concluded that he had not ordered anyone to disable safety equipment directly, but he had repeatedly overridden local maintenance priorities and encouraged reporting practices that hid deferred work. Claire could have blamed everything on him. She didn't. That mattered to Daniel. The company changed its maintenance dashboard. Deferred work remained visible. Production managers no longer lost performance credit for documented safety shutdowns. Maintenance supervisors received independent stop work authority. Several long-term contractor positions became permanent roles, not because contractors were incompetent, but because the plant had been relying on temporary labor for permanent responsibility. Jenna got authority she probably should have had years earlier. She celebrated by complaining about the additional meetings. Daniel's 30-day review ended on a Friday. Claire asked him to meet at headquarters. He entered the same conference room where they had first met. His original resume sat on the table. Daniel stopped. You kept it? Claire looked almost embarrassed. Apparently. I'm charging storage. Sit down. He did. Claire pushed a folder toward him. Another offer. Director of Reliability and Operational Systems. Same salary. Same benefits. Different contract. Daniel read carefully. Protected school day scheduling when business needs allowed. Travel capped at 15% without mutual agreement. No broad non-disparagement clause. No requirement to approve customer communications outside his technical authority. Direct reporting line to Claire, with dotted line responsibility to plant operations. Daniel looked up. You changed it. Yes. Why? Because you were right about one thing. Only one. Don't ruin this. Daniel smiled. Claire continued. I wanted somebody who would own the outcome. I thought that meant somebody who stayed until the problem disappeared. Daniel looked at the company motto printed on the folder. And now? Sometimes owning the outcome means stopping something before the outcome gets worse. Daniel nodded. Claire leaned back. I also owe you a better explanation for the interview. You already apologized. I explained the insult. I didn't explain the assumption. Daniel waited. Claire looked toward the window. 10 years ago, I hired a vice president with an impeccable resume. Same company for 15 years. Every promotion exactly where it should have been. He nearly destroyed our first national expansion because he had spent his entire career making problems look good for the person above him. Daniel listened. I decided I would never be fooled by polish again, she continued. Then apparently I invented a different shortcut. Instability equals unreliability. Yes. Humans really enjoy shortcuts. I'm discovering that. Daniel looked at the offer. Claire said, I'm not offering this because I feel guilty. Good. I'm offering it because you're qualified. Better. And because you annoy Martin. He's gone. Still counts. Daniel laughed. Then he became serious. I have one condition. Claire stared at him. Of course you do. My son has a school showcase in March. That's 5 months away. I know. You already know the date? Daniel pulled out his field notebook. He opened to a clean page. March 17th, 4:30. Written in ink. Claire looked at it. You put that in a maintenance notebook? No. Daniel closed the book. I put maintenance in my calendar around that. Claire smiled. That's your condition? No meeting gets scheduled over it unless the building is actually on fire. Actual fire? Visible flame. What about smoke? Depends on the smoke. Daniel. I'm negotiating. Claire held out her hand. Accepted. Daniel shook it. He did not feel rescued. That surprised him. Months earlier, he might have imagined a job like this as proof that all the sacrifices had finally paid off. Now it felt different. It was work. Good work. Well-paid work. Work he had chosen after asking better questions. There was dignity in that, but no magic. A job could help a family. It could not become the family's foundation. Daniel had made that mistake before. That Sunday Hannah called from Denver. "How's the executive life?" "I have not started yet." "So you're still tolerable." "Barely." Noah was on the living room floor rebuilding the robot intake. Hannah said, "He sounds happier." Daniel watched him. "I think he was more worried than we knew. We gave him reasons." "Yeah." Pause. Then Hannah said, "For what it's worth, I wasn't questioning whether you're a good father." Daniel leaned against the kitchen counter. "I know. You didn't sound like you knew." "I didn't. I was questioning whether the way you work was sustainable." "You were right about part of it." "Only part. Don't ruin this." Hannah laughed. Then she became quieter. "I'm glad we talked to him." "Me too. You know he may still want to try Colorado someday." Daniel felt the old resistance rise automatically. Then he looked at Noah. "We'll talk about it if he does." Hannah paused. That sounded suspiciously healthy. "I have a new policy." "What policy?" "If it changes the plan, we tell him." Hannah laughed softly. "He's been telling you that for years." "I'm a slow learner." After the call, Daniel sat beside Noah on the floor. The robot was in pieces. Daniel looked at the scattered gears. "This seems worse." "It isn't. There are literally more pieces than before." "I'm changing the intake." "Why?" Noah pointed at the orange gear. "It still slips when the battery gets low." Daniel reached for it. Noah slapped his hand away. "I got it." Daniel held both hands up. "Hostile workplace. You're management now. Go make a spreadsheet." "That is deeply offensive." Noah smiled. Daniel watched him work. A year earlier he would have taken the robot apart and fixed the problem in 10 minutes. Then he would have told himself he was helping. Now he waited. Noah tried one position. Wrong. The second. Still wrong. He stared at the mechanism. Daniel said nothing. Finally Noah flipped the gear assembly, changed the angle of the motor and tightened the mount. He tested it. The intake spun smoothly. Noah looked up. "That was it." Daniel nodded. "What failed first?" Noah grinned. "The angle." "Good." Noah reached for Daniel's black field notebook. "Can I write it down?" Daniel handed it to him. Noah flipped through the old pages. Compressor readings. Maintenance schedules. Names. Dates. Problems Daniel had once thought were urgent enough to carry everywhere. Then Noah reached the page where Daniel had written the date of the March showcase. "You actually put it in here." "Told you." Noah took the pencil from behind his ear. Underneath the date he wrote one sentence. "Don't move this one." Daniel read it. He could have made a joke. He almost did. Instead he took the pencil and drew a line beneath the words. Then he closed the notebook. On Monday morning, Daniel walked into Voss Meridian headquarters carrying the same resume Claire had laughed at 6 weeks earlier. He had considered rewriting it, making it cleaner, removing smaller contracts, turning 8 years of complicated choices into a career path that looked deliberate from a distance. He decided against it. The resume wasn't perfect. Neither was the story behind it. But every line represented a decision he understood now. Some had been smart. Some had been fearful. Some had cost him opportunities. Some had given him afternoons in school gyms that no promotion could return later. Claire passed him near the elevators. She looked at the resume. "You're not using that version for your employee file." "Why?" "It still looks chaotic." Daniel smiled. "Ask better questions." Claire shook her head and walked away. Daniel entered the elevator. His phone buzzed. A message from Noah. "Robot test at 4:30. Same plan?" Daniel looked at the time. 8:12 in the morning. A full day of work ahead. Problems would come. Machines would fail. Meetings would run long. Somebody would eventually describe a crisis as urgent when it was merely expensive. Daniel opened the black notebook. On the page beneath Noah's handwriting he wrote, 4:30. Then he texted back. Same plan. And for the first time in years, Daniel did not treat that promise as the part of the schedule most likely to move.